we were in a lockdown, even though the government said it's a lockdown, but everybody is out and they're having fun. But do you also experience the same kind of feeling the others are experiencing?
I'm not trying not to look at anything. I'm trying to raise money and do my thing.
Yeah. So it's interesting the way we are, uh, you know, uh, operating at the moment, right? So we are operating at a time where everything looks like a depressing times, but yet, as an entrepreneur, you are actually, doing your thing, being relentless and perhaps just pursuing your goal. How do you see your journey in that perspective? Especially at this time.
Just the usual, and you have different journeys in entrepreneurship that that you are experiencing. So this is just one of them. One of the challenges you have to overcome.
Right. So, from your perspective, if you look at the journey pre-COVID versus
Yeah.
what you are going through right now, what has changed in that direction? Like, as far as maybe accessibility of people or resources or those kind of things.
So pre-COVID entrepreneurs definitely could travel, right? So we could meet with investors. It was much easier when you do business face to face. Now we kind of have to move into the digital, and we have to rely on a lot of introductions, right? Because how do you know that somebody, how can you have a feel for somebody if they're good to work with or they're a good investment partner? You have to figure these things out in a totally different way, and you have to kind of be a very, very global company. There's some advantages to that because people are getting used to working with others online, right? And not face to face. Because I used to just go and announce, I'm going to London in 2 weeks. Are you, do you have some time to meet? And people would say yes, because, it's a limited amount of time. There's FOMO. They get to meet me. They get to learn what I'm doing and hopefully work together with me. Now, everything is always available. Everybody's always available. You're online 24/7. I'm doing, when I used to work in an office, I would do, say, maybe, I don't know, 5, 6 meetings a day. Now I'm doing 25 phone calls a day. And sometimes I'm doing 2 phone calls at a time. Like I put one on mute and I say, excuse me, and then I do the second one. So it's it's insane,
But
right?
yeah. I mean, the way, especially now, like, even I have realized that in the past, if I was just commuting to office, then I had my commuting hours, and then I could use my commuting hours to do whatever. Now, I'm using that commuting hour to actually work. And on top of that, I find, working is more pleasant now, in my own terms. But at the end of the day, I feel like, I'm working, I don't know, more than what I used to work before. I guess you are maybe, having the same kind of experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to bike to meetings. Now I'm taking taxis because I don't have a free slot. If somebody cancels on me, I say, yay. Thank God. Because now I can have lunch, use the bathroom. So, it's
Use the bathroom.
insane. Yeah.
Wow. So how are you keeping up in that perspective? Of course, like, it is a challenge. Like, we are aware of the challenges. Like, we've learned to deal with it. Yet, there are things that you wanted to sort of look into, as far as entrepreneur is concerned. Maybe you wanted to scale, or maybe you had some plans. What has been the effect towards that?
So thankfully, we have a fantastic team that's also working super hard, right? So, we have I have the support network of people who are building technology, who are doing business development and project management, all of that. So in terms of tech, like we're doing really well. We're able to focus, like our team is able to focus much better. So we're definitely able to create and innovate. We're also living, all living relatively close. So, and we do get to meet. I think meeting face to face is super important to innovation. I think COVID, actually, some of the companies that have been affected the most by COVID, I think innovative companies, because it's very difficult to innovate online. Like it's very difficult to have a brainstorming session when you're not sitting with somebody face to face, right? So on the other hand, you on one hand you're getting super productive, like hyper productive, moving from one thing to the other. On the other hand, when you have to sit down and think about what you're building, you can't do that with other people, and so I think that innovation is in general is going to probably slow down in the short term, but there's lots of need, right? So people are innovate. On the one hand, there's lots of need um, to innovate because of COVID. Everything goes digital. Blah, blah, blah. No. So on the other hand, it's difficult to do that. So I think people need to have to find a balance and need to find a way to work together, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. To work together online in a digital way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the offerings, maybe reflect on your own company, or like what you guys are up to, and what do you do, as far as your services are concerned, and let's try to open up on that part.
So we are an issuance platform that issues digital securities. So in the traditional finance world, security is nothing new, right? You have a kind of a plain vanilla securitization process where you issue a right to revenue or upside of a project to an investor. COVID-19 has created a huge need for a product like ours. But, that real estate companies are looking for ways to innovate. There's no doubt about it. Investors are looking to invest, and especially because they can't travel. Let's say if you wanted to buy London real estate, you cannot easily do that. It's difficult to buy real estate without being in a specific country.
Yeah.
And so we're definitely, we're providing a solution for that.
And how does that work in a more practical terms? Like if I'm an investor, so what's next for me? If I come to you and ask like, hey, I need this solution, so what would be that offering?
If you're a what's called an accredited or sophisticated investor, then it's actually very simple. We have a lot of opportunities for you to invest. You can choose the asset you're interested in, whether it's a Best Western hotel in Phuket, Thailand, or it's an office building to soon be residential in Connecticut, or it's a luxury residential building in Italy, or it's a single family residential fund in London. Whatever you're interested in, you can go and choose your investment from $5,000 and up. And then very simply, you transfer the funds the way you traditionally do through your bank. Mm-hmm. If you want to sell it for profit, right? Or if you need the money, if you need the cash.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the sellers like also need to tie it up with you, and then only it works. Or like how does that work?
The sellers need to definitely work with us to digitize their property, right? Mm-hmm. Usually we're talking about kind of like a multifamily project, a big project, 5 million and up. We're not dealing with like single family properties on their own. Like let's say if you had a house, I don't know some sort of a commercial or multifamily residential property, then that's definitely an option. When I'm talking about our London single family residential fund, what I mean is that you're investing in an operation that goes out and buys houses, renovates them and sells them, and then distributes the profit from this activity with the investor. I mean, to the investor.
Okay. And where did you get this particular idea? Like, okay, this is where I see the gap in the market, and okay, this would be my beginning. Like, how did you sort of even jump onto this sort of idea?
How did you wake up one day and decide to do this? So I've always wanted to be a real estate investor. I started out my career on Wall Street, where I worked in a broker dealer, and the cool thing I learned by working at that broker dealer, options broker dealer, was that my boss at the time wanted to sell expired options. So he reached out to the SEC, asking Securities Exchange Commission, asking if it's okay to create a marketplace for expired options. And of course they said no, there will be no such thing. But I realized that you can have an outrageous idea in finance and go out and pitch it and change and create a new product, a new asset class. And then when you look at the history of finance, every single decade, there's some new asset class that comes to the market, right? Like Bitcoin came to the market in 2010, right? Now we have ETFs, electronic traded funds based on cryptocurrencies, right? And Fidelity, which is like one of the largest asset managers in the world, is actually trading these asset classes, right? So that's incredible, right? That's incredible. So that's beginning of my journey. I went then into private equity and M&A. I worked on the largest IPO of a commercial real estate. All right, hi. So now we're in my house.
Yeah.
With my cat. He's basically like he's a decorative cat. He has the same the same pattern as the couch. So
okay.
That's how we chose the cat. We figured it would look really good on the couch.
Yeah.
So all right. So how did I get into this space? So I started out 20 years ago on Wall Street, working for an options broker dealer. And it was really exciting because I was in college and, learning about finance and economics. And my boss wanted to create a new financial product, and he went out and asked the SEC if you could sell expired options. And the SEC said no. But I realized you can build new things in finance. You can create new products. And when you're kind of looking at the history of finance, every decade you have a new product coming out, like hedge funds, mutual funds. And in 2010, you had Bitcoin, and then now you have Bitcoin ETFs. And you have like the biggest asset managers like Fidelity trading these assets. So that's really exciting on the one hand. So that was kind of my journey into finance. Then I moved into M&A and private equity, and also structuring financial indices like financial engineering. All the while I was working also on real estate deals, real estate funds, and one of the largest IPO of an Israeli company on AIM, which is a stock exchange in London, was a commercial real estate group. So I was doing a lot of these things, doing huge M&A deals. All the while, I've always wanted to be a real estate investor, and I kind of did a single family home investments here and there, but I was never able to get a hold of like really big deals. So on the one hand, I'm seeing these commercial real estate opportunities that I'm analyzing, for writing a prospectus, and I'm looking at it, and they're saying, annualized IRR of 18 or 20%. And here I am, investing in an apartment and getting 3%. And, to me, that was kind of always a little bit, right? It's not, I can't say it's not fair, but, it's not what I would ideally want to get into. How do I get into these big multifamily or commercial deals? As a non-accredited investor, it's really difficult to do. I also don't have huge amounts to invest because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm putting most of my earnings into my companies. So that was number one, like a hurdle number one. Hurdle number two was the fact that I needed to stay liquid. I can't put a lot of money into an asset that I can't get out of. You know, as a young person starting a family and kids, like you need to have that security. And so that was always on my mind. Like I've been in blockchain in the last 4 years because I really am in love with this technology specifically, because I think that it's extremely innovative in a way that hasn't happened in the last 10, 20 years since the internet was invented. And a lot of people don't realize what it does, what blockchain does in the back end, and how it's going to change transactions in the next 5 to 10 years. So right now, majority of the banks are using it, but pretty soon we're going to be able to see the impact on the asset world. So that's where we come in. So in a nutshell, I really wanted to solve the problem of inaccessibility of real estate for myself and for people like myself. Got into started doing a startup of my own, looked into a competition. I found the deal, the Aspen coin deal that was done by SolidBlock. So the CEO's name was Yuval. Figured he's either Jewish or Israeli. I looked him up. He lived an hour and a half from me. We met up and we partnered up and been working on this ever since. So that's how we got started. And if I had to kind of create an analogy of what we're doing, tokenization, making assets digital. So in the beginning, when we made money digital in a way, right, banking digital, you could make bank transfers without going into the bank. You can get loans without going into the bank. You can do many other services, right, that you normally couldn't do when you're operating in cash, right?
Yeah.
When you have now you have a bank and you have a digital form of money. So imagine if you had assets that you're owning in a digital form as well. So now we have a lot of opportunities from collateralizing these assets to get loans, to creating portfolios of these assets easily, right? And trading your assets as easily as, let's say, you trade other currencies and transfer funds from one person to the other. So it opens up a whole new world, which we can't even understand yet.
So, and how does that really work with the regulators? I mean, there must be some challenge there, right? Or there's no challenge?
Well, there's definitely challenges, and one of them is that many people don't understand regulation. It took us like a year and a half to really learn about global regulations and get partnerships with companies that ensure compliance every time we go out and raise funds in a specific region, especially in a new area. So it's a very complex space. We're pretty clear on regulation, so there's no ambiguity in the majority of regions where we work. But some other regions where we want to work, like the UAE, for example, United Arab Emirates, we have a lot of demand, but they don't have any specific regulation there allowing for us to just go in and issue digital securities to investors. We have to go through like a sandbox and be in touch with regulators and so on. The UK is also a little bit difficult, and India is very difficult. And we definitely want to go to India because it's a huge market, and we have a lot of demand from India. China is, of course, off limits. It's not legal there in any way, shape, or form. So actually, I'm starting to think about it, there are lots of challenges, but not in the US, not in Europe, not in Israel.
Oh, that works. And I'm sure like when you are convincing our regulators right at the beginning, I'm sure there were like typical questions like, but those questions the regulator asks you are indifferent from each countries or they are similar of nature. How do you see those questions, right? I'm just wondering, like, what do they even ask, right? Because it is such a new field. Blockchain itself is new. And then you're saying, okay, we are going to digitize your property. It's a physical property. How do you do that, right? So,
Oh, that's actually fairly simple because, like I said, we're issuing a security. So that's a plain vanilla process that, has not been altered. Of course, it's digital. So you have very specific regulation towards issuing a security. Now with trading, it's a little more difficult. In the US, they don't differentiate between a regular security and the digital security in terms of trading. You can buy and sell it. In a year, there's a lockup of a year, and then you can buy and sell it through automated trading systems, ATSs, or exchanges of some sort. So that's a process that's been well set up. The same thing is in Europe, and in Israel, it's allowed via exchanges as well, of which there is only one right now, but hopefully there will be new with some forthcoming regulation that open up the market. So in terms of the regulators, they're not really involved in the sense that if we're going only to accredited investors, we have some exemptions we need to go through, and we're not talking to the regulator. We need to talk to the regulators. The process of issuing security is actually not breaking a specific asset into parts. I'm not saying, this apartment goes to this person, this apartment goes to that person. The way it works is that I'm forming an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, as a company that will hold the asset, that will buy the asset, a whole building, or maybe a floor, maybe several apartments, maybe a shopping mall. And then that company is going to be broken down in parts, right, in shares. And those shares are going to be distributed, right? You could also issue debt to that company instead of shares. That's a different type of a security token. So that in that way, we're not changing any paradigm in terms of the regulation of a plain vanilla security. There are some complexities with the trading depending on the jurisdiction and difficulties, because it's digital. Digital trading is new in some places, but overall, within, like I said, U.S., Europe, Israel, these are pretty clear. And in other countries, you're asking, what are they asking us? If we were to go, we went and had a meeting with ADGM, which is an Abu Dhabi based regulator. And, they said, come into our sandbox, which is a program set up by a regulator in which you have meetings and you can ask questions. You're assigned like a special person within the regulatory body. And then we can ask, is this allowed? Is this allowed? And then they'll have a meeting and they'll decide if this is allowed or not. So that's the meaning of a sandbox.
So that's interesting. So when you look at the evolution so far, personally as an entrepreneur, like you mentioned, like you were interested in blockchain, and that perhaps led you to the SolidBlock that you are now at. How do you see this learning, right? As an entrepreneur, like you were into the financial sector for quite a long time, then moved to blockchain because you perhaps saw some opportunities there. Like, what specific opportunity did you see into blockchain?
Wow. I mean, which specific opportunities did I not see in blockchain?
Yeah. I want to hear that.
I've been working with. I had this period with myself when I decided I'm just going to consult now and not do a startup because there's so many opportunities and I need to learn about where they lie and then kind of establish what works. So I worked with supply chain companies and banks, and I even went to Africa to work on like a title registry, and I worked with governments. So I gave myself some time to look into the opportunities, and they kind of screamed at me at the time. There was a time when there was this ICO period, like initial coin offerings. That's a non-regulated process of issuing tokens, which is illegal now in many countries. And everybody thought, wow, we can now move all of equity financing into blockchain. So that didn't happen. And so then I just went with my gut with what I think is the problem that needs solving, because there's always an opportunity in the market, especially with new emerging technologies. But at the end of the day, you have to always think, what is the problem that I want solving? So I looked into my own lack of, let's say, financial education, or even with working in the financial industry and studying finance and economics, you kind of always have something new to learn. Like I started reading things like Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and a lot of similar, and also the 4-Hour Week by Tim Ferriss, kind of getting ahead. There are many really good books out there. When you learn that everything you know about finance or getting ahead is wrong, right? And taxes, and it's just interesting how your perspective changes over time on what you should be doing. And I realized I need to have assets to grow wealth, to get where I want to be. And so that's how I arrived to what I'm doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. So when you are sort of driven by let's say a clear motivation about, okay, this is what I want to do as an entrepreneur, and then you have people supporting you, you have your support system built around the initiative, around the vision that you have. How do you see that support system functioning now prior to COVID? Perhaps you are driven because you are an entrepreneur, but how do you see the other support system really going to together with you at this point in time? Do you see it's functioning the way it should function at the same time?
So which support system you mean,
Like
like my company, or?
for example, for every entrepreneur, there's a system that supports the entrepreneur to see the dream, right? If you think about your system, perhaps
Yeah.
it's a
Okay.
finance, it's a people, it's the family, or whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
In your case, yes,
Huh.
yeah.
Right. So yeah, my animals and my children. It's so funny because we're in lockdown now, and they're studying at home at school, and at 9 a.m. I have like a phone call scheduled. So before 9 I get up, I set them up with a Zoom, and then like at 9:05, one of them is crying, doesn't want to be on the Zoom. The other one at 9:10, the other one is the computer crashed, and so it's complicated, of course, for all of us. But thankfully, I have some support system. I know of babysitters and grandparents, like an army of people, even in this difficult time. But it's also very comical. It's very common, and people get it. If people get it, sometimes I'm doing like an investor call, and like somebody's crying, next behind the door that I lock now with a key. For 15 minutes, but something, and the dog is barking, and it's just a big huge mess. But you have to do what you have to do. In terms of the support network, I feel like people are much more supportive now because they know that entrepreneurs need extra support. So we do have a lot of advisors and mentors, people who connect you with investors, and I think that everybody in the world just realized that we have to work together, and we have to support startups. So also when I get requests or calls, and even though I'm so busy, like I'm literally on the phone 20 hours a day, I also take those requests, and I do what I need to do. I take engagements, and whatever I need to do to help out.
Mm-hmm. 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 So, if you have to, think about the stage at the moment, like your company is, how do you think about the maturity at the moment? Like from where you started, is it in a is it more of a self-sustaining sort of enterprise already, or this is still something that you want to aspire to become in the future, or like how do you see this?
We always have plans and aspirations of where we want to get. We're at the very beginning. Like, we have some really good traction,
Mm-hmm.
but I have great, huge plans for our company, to be
Mm-hmm.
the powerhouse of financial products and services based on tokenization. And
Mm-hmm.
this is going to happen. It will take a little bit of time because the market is still developing and emerging, but definitely I need everybody's help to come on board. I have a course on tokenization and what it does, how it's done, like a very, very hands-on type of course that I teach online. So I'm happy for anybody to come and check it out, and learn about this industry.
Mm-hmm. 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 Okay, and if you are to sort of now look into other similar let's say companies, or maybe you're in their like first few, I would say, who are actually offering this service. If you are to look at, maybe there are competitors out there who are actually also doing the similar kind of work. How do you say you are uniquely placed against them, or vice versa?
Well, we are coming from the financial industry, right?
Hmm.
So, and like I said, tokenization is just the beginning. There are many
Hmm.
companies out there, or a few companies out there that are providing digitization services, let's say, to property owners, right, and property funds. But well, we're certainly unique because our focus is really providing access to real estate, and that's a much bigger vision, because it encompasses bringing together a big ecosystem of, on one hand, property owners, and on the other hand, distributors and compliance providers, and so many different things around the value chain of property. And then also, we can do this for equity, we can do this for other asset classes. So, but the most important thing is being a network component and a big ecosystem.
Hmm. With that said, how do you see the real estate market? Like, how do you see the regular real estate agent, like, opening a small, I don't know, the office at the roadside, and working? Like, how do you see the future of those individuals who are a little bit more traditional, in a sense that you're calling and selling your house, and but now you're doing, it's slightly different, right? So basically, I can buy a
Yeah.
house staying at home now, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. It's a very interesting thing because people are changing where they live. A lot of people are moving out of cities because it's become, you have digital transformation that's being forced on us for the bad and for the good. Because a
Hmm.
lot, people were frustrated for a reason of having to commute every single day, for several hours. Now, like you said, you have to commute. You're more productive, but you're kind of working all the time because it's global, working, with different companies all over the place, through all hours of the day. So try not to miss a Zoom call. So it's changed the way we work. People are moving out of cities. People are buying bigger houses so they can have an office. People are investing, are not investing in the office space and are not investing in hospitality projects. So it definitely changed our behavior and the real estate space.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the cat is hungry.
You have to feed
The
him.
cat soon.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and again, I want to come back to your journey again as an entrepreneur. Uh, there's often a saying that entrepreneurship is a very grueling and a lonely journey. It's a lonely journey because you are all by yourself, and you hit and miss, all the time. How do you how do you compare that statement against your own journey?
I don't think it's a lonely journey for me because I have a co-founder,
Hmm.
and I have a lot in Israel. I have one of the biggest, we call it Startup Nation. So it's one of the biggest entrepreneur communities.
Hmm.
So every taxi driver has a startup, seems like, or at least a startup idea. Or an idea of how the government needs to manage the COVID crisis or anything else with the economy. So it's true. It's true. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't say nobody can understand me. I had some issues in the past with people who said, "Wait, you're too busy. You don't have time for anything. You don't have time for me." So I don't necessarily need to at this point in time in life right now uh, to let's say have a huge network of people outside my work, because I have a huge network of people inside my work, right? So work is life for me, and it's great. So and I think these people definitely understand what you're going through.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think that's more important, right? Uh, because as an entrepreneur, you enjoy every single bit of what you're doing because that's what you chose to do, right? In a sense, that's what you chose to do. That's what you find being motivated, perhaps. And you wake up every single morning because of that, right? So otherwise you wouldn't do it, right?
Exactly.
You wouldn't drag yourself to the office.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right on the money.